Well, next week, the legislature is back in session, but on Monday, instead of a throne speech from Victoria, Premier Christy Clark will be making a statement on a Vancouver radio station, and that is generating a lot of static. Dana Hutchings is here now with Checkpoint.
Jim, technically this is a continuation of the session from November, so a throne speech isn't necessary. Traditionally, there is a throne speech for the spring sitting. However, this year the Premier isn't taking to the legislature, but to the airwaves instead. Christy Clark's been criticized for being a photo op premier, but that might change.
If it's not a photo op, it's a radio spot premier.
She's no stranger to the airwaves.
To just offer these personal notes.
Before she was premier, Clark was a talk show host at CKNW. But taking to the radio to lay out the government's agenda, that's unusual.
She's going to circle the wagon, so this is maybe a sign of trying to control the message and control the audiences.
The controversy erupted with a press release sent from the Premier's Deputy Press Secretary. It says in place of a formal throne speech, the Premier will be appearing on CKNW's Bill Good show to outline the government's agenda for the spring session.
That strikes me as picking favorites, and I think as the Premier you should be in the legislature. We're going to be starting on Tuesday. If she has something to say, to lay out for the people of BC, that's the place she should do it.
In many ways she owes a lot to that radio station, but really if she's going to announce tax policies, it ought to be in the legislature.
And then there's the question of who will hear Clark's radio address.
By going on one radio outlet in the Lower Mainland that doesn't have reach here to Vancouver Island, to the north, to the interior, the Premier's really speaking to an exclusive audience.
Well, we won't see any of this pomp and ceremony on Monday. With the Premier on the radio, the legislature will be more like this. But it won't be quiet for long. Expect a lot of questions when the session resumes on Tuesday. And our Checkpoint question tonight, what do you think of the Premier's plan to outline the government's agenda on a Vancouver radio station?
If it's in the radio station, then a lot more people will hear about it than if it's just in the legislature, because maybe not as many people will be interested in it.
It's not really fair for all of BC then, because it's just making it seem like Vancouver is the most important part of BC.
Well, I think it should be more inclusive.
Just the fact that it's not being broadcast as widely as before and not in sort of the traditional way of doing things. I don't know if that covers all the audience and keeps in mind everyone that possibly cares about what's being said.
Most people in Vancouver are listening to the radio station there, as well as is probably covering Vancouver Island as well, so she'll probably get her point across through the media.
No, I don't think it's a very good thing, because if you're representing government, you should represent all the people. So if all the people can't hear what you have to say, it's not really fair.
From Facebook, Jeffrey says, is this a conflict of interest? She gave up a job in radio before becoming Premier and will likely be needing a job in radio after the next election. From Twitter, Holistic Sailor says, fine by me, as long as the info is available in other mediums as well. And Mike says, guess she's not talking to me. That's fine. I'll remember that. And the results of our web poll, should the Premier outline the government's agenda in the legislature or a Vancouver radio station? 95% said in the legislature and 5% said on a Vancouver radio station. Now, on the radio show, the public will have a chance to ask questions, and the NDP has said they will have lots of questions when the session resumes on Tuesday. And that's tonight's Checkpoint.